right, thanks a lot. Oh, I'm not getting 2 extra minutes because I have too many slides. All right, so hi everyone. My name is Philipp Jovanovis. I also want to say thanks to Ava for putting together this very nice event and giving me a chance to present some of my research here. Yeah, so today I will be talking about too many keys, and actually the subtitle is Aggregatable Distributed Key Generation, which is a research project that we did last year. All right, so yeah, I don't want to bore you too much with my CV, but in a nutshell, like I'm a professor for information security at University College London in the UK. I'm still living in Switzerland. If you want to learn more about that, why, you can ask me later. And I also do like a bunch of stuff in industry, so I give crypto trainings in industry. I do scientific advising, and I also help running a validator, and you can also find me on the interweb. All right. So yeah, before I start, I want to have a big shout out to my amazing co-authors. So the research that I'm presenting here is not just my own work. Actually, these guys did most of the work. So it's Kobe from Geometry Research, Mary from the Ethereum Foundation, Sarah, a colleague of mine from University College London and Google, Gilad from the Hebrew University, and Aline Tomescu, who is now at Aptos Labs. All right, so when we started out with this project, we were like taking a sharp look at the distributed key generation projects, like algorithms and protocols which are out there. And we were like looking at them and like seeing that all of these projects, like all of these protocols are quite complicated. And we wanted to reduce the complexity of these protocols. And particularly one annoying part in many of these algorithms is that you have something that's called a complaint round. And these complaint rounds basically are there to ensure that if a participant during the protocol run drops out, that you can somehow work around that and not have to restart the protocol. I will go into that in a moment. So, but these things are quite annoying and make the protocol and the engineering effort quite big. And if you want to learn more about that, you can talk to Nicholas, who went through this many times. So what we were wondering, like, can we actually generate a distributed key generation algorithm that has no complaint rounds, right? So we went out on this endeavor, and like in the end, we came up with this nice primitive and showed, yes, you can actually do that. So in this paper here on the right-hand side, what we introduce is this new distributed key generation protocol, which is publicly verifiable, aggregatable, and has no complaint rounds. We also show how you can use it in practice and build useful systems with it. And to that end, we also introduce a so-called structure-preserving, verifiable, unpredictable function, which on a high level is just a signature. And we also introduce some new theoretical results which help proving things secure. All right, so why should all of you care about this, or why is this stuff interesting? So on a high level, in cryptography traditionally, it's concerned with situations where you have two parties that communicate with each other, and they want to achieve goals in terms of confidentiality, integrity, and so forth. So, however, there are also situations where you require increased robustness against failure or compromise, and there, like a two-party paradigm is not really is insufficient or inappropriate, right? So, and this then leads you actually to this multi-party paradigm that underpins threshold cryptography, where you can distribute the trust amongst many participants, and then these many participants can come together and jointly execute cryptographic protocols to achieve certain things. In particular, what that does is, of course, it removes single points of failure. And then you usually have this notion of a T out of N assumption here, where at least T out of N of these participants have to collaborate to achieve or execute a certain cryptographic protocol. And this is also, most importantly, in the presence of active adversaries who may control up to T-1 of these parties, right? Up until like one party less of the threshold. And this has become like, in particular with the emergence of cryptocurrencies, this has become very popular, right? Because in many of these situations, you are in a scenario where multiple participants jointly want to achieve something, and then threshold cryptography is usually a useful tool. So just on a high level, what are things that you can do with threshold cryptography? Like Lucas will talk more about that in the next presentation. So, but on a high level, what you can do is you can achieve threshold encryption, right? Where I can encrypt a message to all of you, and if you have like done a proper setup, then T out of N of you have to collaborate to decrypt my message, right? And this is useful in, for example, collective management of encrypted databases, right? And we also have a paper on that in case you're curious how to do that. Then another thing that you can do are threshold signatures, where, again, T out of N participants have to come together to jointly generate a signature on a statement, right? And that gives some additional accountability and ensures that not a single individual can issue a statement on issue a signature on an important statement, right? And like one where that is useful is, for example, in the collective management of cryptocurrency wallets, right? In like many crypto projects, you have like an entity that is like a for-profit entity that is developing the project, and then there is a foundation who is responsible for the funds. And then often these funds are stored in cryptocurrency wallets that require T out of N signatures to unlock certain funds, right? Yes. Okay, yes, sorry. And then another protocol that is approach that is very dear to my heart is so-called public randomness. And I'm sorry for Jolan to not being able to have a talk here, but here's the replacement for that. I'm doing that on your part. Hopefully that's fine. So yeah, public randomness these are values that are used, that are secret up to a certain point in time. And then once these random values are released, they are collectively used, right? So, and these are usually used for high-stakes decision-making processes where fairness and transparency are crucial. And these can be things like lotteries, election audits, games, decentralized system scaling, right? For example, you can use that in sharding processes, or you can also use it in consensus for leader or committee selection, which is like very useful in proof of stake. And the main goals usually are unpredictability, unbiasability, and verifiability. And most importantly, on a high level, no single entity should be capable of predicting or biasing the final outcome before the random value is released, right? So we also have a paper on that, and if you're also interested in how this looks in practice, there's a very nice project called DRAND, which is a distributed randomness beacon, and you can go to that website and see like how DRAND is producing public randomness every 30 seconds or so. All right, so, but for all of these projects, like the core thing that you need to do before you can actually run all of these threshold crypto projects protocols is you need to do a key generation process so that N participants come together and jointly generate a key that they then later on, like jointly generate a key and key shares that they can then later on use in these threshold crypto projects. And this will be the focus of this talk. So, and like there are different approaches how you can do that. And the simplest one is you just have a trusted dealer that generates a bunch of keys for all of the participants and one public key, hands out the keys to the participants, and then you're good to go, right? So this is like known as secret sharing, and then these participants can like participate in the threshold crypto protocol. And yeah, out of the interest of time, I'm not going too deep into this, but like the core primitive, how you do this is a protocol called Shamir secret sharing that goes back to the 70s or 80s. And basically what you do is, yeah, you just evaluate a polynomial in a certain way, and then these evaluations are basically the key shares. And then later on, you can like aggregate these key shares and basically recover this polynomial, and then usually this the constant factor here is where the secret is stored. Or in our case, like the participants keep their key shares and then they use them in the threshold crypto protocols. So the problem, however, is if you go back for a moment and look at this diagram, is that the dealer here is generating all of these key shares, right? So basically the dealer is a trusted third party, and the dealer can impersonate all of these participants, which is of course not something that we really want. So and then the question is, can we remove that trust assumption somehow? And the answer is yes, and that leads us to distributed key generation, where basically each of our participants here acts as a dealer and gives out shares to everybody else. And then they come together and somehow aggregate those shares into their own key share in such a way that nobody knows the actual master secret key, right? Everybody just has a piece of that master key. And they also collectively compute the final public key. And then everybody can use their key share that is like unique and secret to them in threshold crypto protocols. Okay, so back to these complaint rounds that I already mentioned initially. The issue with all of these distributed key generation processes, or with many of them, is that you have a problem if one of these participants is not actually participating in the protocol and is dropping out for whatever reason, either maliciously or just by accident, and is not giving their contribution to someone, right? So for example, here in this diagram, like P1, the blue node, did not receive a message from P2, the red node, right? Although they would require their contribution. So, and then how these distributed key generation protocols like route around that is they have these complaint rounds, and P1 then says like, hey, like they broadcast, they tell everybody, like P2 didn't send me anything. We need to do something about it. And as you can imagine, like implementing all of this is quite tedious and annoying, right? And in addition, P1 could also be actually malicious, and they could lie about not having not saying that they haven't received anything from P2, although they did, right? So they could blame P2 wrongly that they lied. And then you also have to handle that in your protocol, right? If you don't want to restart. And that's just a major annoyance. So yeah, okay, so that's basically all I just said. The protocol structure is quite complicated. You have a large attack surface. These are like high latency protocols, which is annoying. Parties cannot go offline, and you have a very inflexible communication structure. So in comparison, what we wanted to achieve is a DKG without complaint routes that gets around that issue. And here's the high-level picture of how you achieve that. Participants still would generate key shares for everybody else, right? But they would on top also encrypt those key shares towards the public keys of these other participants, and then have some form of proof that the encryption actually holds a valid key share. And then they just publish those encrypted ciphertexts. And everybody can go and collect these ciphertexts, locally decrypt them, and then aggregate them, right? And now, if somebody is not like providing a key share or is providing an incorrect key share, everybody can see that, right? Because we published those encrypted ciphertexts, and the proof that comes with these ciphertexts basically shows that the encryption is incorrect, right? And therefore, everybody can decide on their own which key shares are correct and which are not, and who are the participants for the final distributed key generation setting that contributed properly. Right, so yeah, our scheme uses like something that's called the Scrape PVSS protocol. Yeah, details later. That's actually a lie. So you can come to me and talk about it because there's not enough time to go into the technical details of that. So yeah, so basically the benefits of this paradigm are that everybody can see if one of the participants sends bad key shares. You have lower latencies and less communication rounds, which is nice from a practical perspective. You have a simplified protocol structure because you can remove all of these complaint rounds. And you also have an increased robustness against nodes that temporarily fail, right? And you can also make use of more flexible and efficient communication patterns, right? So basically here, and another nice benefit here is that not just the participants can verify that the key shares, the encrypted ciphertexts are correct, also external parties who are not involved in the DKG can take a look at the things that the participants shared and see whether they are correct or not. Then this also like unlocks additional nice features, such as you can aggregate these key shares, which is also something that we achieved in our protocol. And in particular, this lets you verify the transcripts of your protocol much faster. So in this all-to-all communication structure, you would need to do transcript verification of n squared. With this aggregatable thing, you can basically run the verification in a smarter way and basically get down the verification costs to O of n log n. Then that also enables you to use communication structures that are very popular these days, such as gossip networks, right? People can just gossip these key shares. And since everybody can like verify that these are correct, they can just forward them to the next one, to the next node in the network, and then they can also verify that the shares are correct. So yeah, I'm not going into that. So yeah, I think like the high-level thing I already told you about, right? Everybody like deals their key shares, then everybody can verify, and then you aggregate the stuff, and then finally you get one transcript, like as a participant, and you can decrypt then your contribution after you've verified that the transcript is correct, and then that is your key share. So, okay, now you may ask, okay, this sounds too good to be true. Are there any downside of this protocol, right? Why is not everybody using this? The issue is, in order to enable this, this functionality of being able to aggregate key shares and proving stuff in public, you need to preserve certain algebraic structures. And in particular, that forces us that the final secret key is not a field element, but is a group element, right? And that basically makes our DKG not compatible to threshold crypto schemes that currently exist, right? Stuff like threshold El-Gamal encryption, threshold BLS, you can't combine that with our DKG protocol, right? And since these things are like by now very popular and widely deployed, right? there's not much incentive to switch to this unless you're building your system from scratch, perhaps. However, so what we also did is, I'm speeding up a little bit because I'm running out of time. We show how you can achieve something similar to threshold BLS signatures that is compatible with our DKG. It is a unique signature scheme where in BLS you have your secret key is just a field element, here X. And in our scheme, the secret key is an H to the X, right? So that's a group element. But you can also, similarly to BLS signatures, you can compute a unique output in this manner, and use that, for example, to implement something like a randomness beacon. Yeah, so that's what I just said, right? You can combine our DKG plus this Viewf to basically build the same thing as DRAND, just with these new primitives. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going into details here. It's just like our DKG is fast. You have like less communication rounds. You need less broadcasts than before. And yeah, thanks to this aggregatability feature, you can spend overall less time on communication and verification. Okay, all right, so this also shows that our DKG scales relatively well, right? So we were able to, like locally, not on a distributed network, but locally the computations go quite well, right? We evaluated it from 64 up until 8,000 participants, and roughly the time to execute the operations in the DKG, they scale linearly. Yeah, also same stuff for the Viewf. It's quite fast and actually gets quite close to BLS. And if you're interested, there's a GitHub project with the code written in Rust. And that is it. Sorry for going over time for a few seconds. Okay.